Did Hoyverse already spoil the story of Amphoreus? They put so many hints and details in this new trailer, referencing some pretty old deep lore from the simulated universe that you've most certainly forgotten, and I'm very excited to talk about it. I'll discuss pretty much every line of the trailer, as well as all the extra materials, but be aware, as I do this, I'm going to avoid talking too much about Honkai Impact Third. Even though, yes, there are many references that are being discussed everywhere, and everyone is super excited, I feel like most of the XPs so far haven't been that similar to their counterparts, and I don't want to get distracted from the juicy Honkai Star Rail lore that's been mentioned also. Except Kevin and Alicia, I do talk a small bit about them because it's specifically important to the points I want to make, but I digress. Let's just get straight into it.
In the legend's beginning, the world was pure chaos.
So, chaos basically describes a world without creation and without order. It's quite popular in creation stories and means basically the void or abyss that existed before anything else was created by the gods.
Then the gods cast down the core flames, and the Titans were born within.
So, for those who aren't familiar, a Titan is an ancient Greek god that existed before the Olympian gods, and there were 12 of them, just as there are in this trailer. They were born of the primordial sky and earth gods, but were overthrown by the next generation. In our case, this next generation are the Flame Chasers, the Chrysos Heirs. Also, take a really good look at the core flame. Doesn't it look familiar? We actually already have cores in-game, and they're these things. They're the hearts of the Fragmentum monsters. Apparently, test results on an extinguished core show that they're half primordial and half something similar to Stellarons, and these quantum-looking ones are considered lesions that breed evil and the impulse to sin. They're considered to be the source of the Fragmentum distortion, which are also considered to be connected to Stellarons, though everything in-game we have about that is described as the mainstream school of thought, which is just writer's code for they're not quite right about it. I'll explain in more detail later on, but these core flames should predate the appearance of Stellarons, which was about 10 eras ago, or 2,400 years ago.
3 Titans carved the heavens and earth. 3 wove the threads of fate. 3 molded life with their hands. And 3 guided Calamity's gate.
So, just like the real Titans, there are 12 of them, and their powers are split between creation, fate, life, and death.
The Titans blaze enlightened civilizations.
Okay, going back a few frames, there's a lot to unpack here. Firstly, the sun strongly resembles Enna's eye, and the words also suggest Enna, who, before the Swarm disaster, was basically the ruler of civilizations. They built up mighty civilizations in a perfect, orderly fashion, and then, when the time came, those civilizations would inevitably crumble. That was something Sunday got very wrong about the Path of Order. An eternal paradise was never their goal. There's also a few points in the Swarm disaster where Enna's power is specifically described as being a sun, so at this point I'm very sure this is talking about them. The golden blood hands in the background are also very important, but I want to talk more about them later on. Just take note of that detail for now.
And people of all realms thrived endlessly.
Yeah, once again, this describes a nation under the watchful eye of Enna. One other thing about Enna is that they actually suppressed destructive emotions. So while Amphoreus was under their power, it was quite literally impossible for these people to feel too much anger or desire for destruction, undoubtedly causing much of the thriving that they're experiencing.
But the golden age was fleeting.
Note here that the people are literally worshipping the flames. This is likely a reference to Prometheus, who stole the fire from the gods and gave it to humanity in the form of civilization and technology, etc. Prometheus is also referenced in Aglaea's trailer, so, I mean, obviously with the whole core flame thing, these fires are important to them.
And from beyond the sky came the heretical black tide.
Okay, I don't think this is intentional, but I find the choice of phrasing here absolutely hilarious because Beyond the Sky is literally the name of Enna's choir, but I doubt that's what they mean. Anyway, the tide is a pretty important detail because it's actually what killed off Enna's choir in the Swarm disaster. Basically, when the Ouroboros emerged from the Sea of Space and fought Tazeron, it seemed to cause a rising tide that then drowned the choir. Before that point, they'd also been periodically sacrificing choir members to the sea and then giving thanks to the drowned. This detail tells us that these events are most likely happening during Taygeron's war with the Ouroboros, just before Enna disappeared between 600 and 800 Amber Eras ago.
Its gloom was darker than death itself.
This frame shows a corrupted titan whose power comes from the core flames. If you've been on my channel before, I've talked a lot about how the source of the nihility is basically the life cycle of suns, since black holes come from old stars. Even the Flint Emperor turned into a black hole. Since the cores we have access to in-game are quantum-themed, yet made of similar material to the Stellarons and the core in this trailer are on fire, I think what happened during the rising tides of the Swarm disaster is that some, or even most of these cores all suddenly turned nihilistic and brought about the Abyssal Sea. If these cores were indeed from Enna originally, then it would explain why their followers specifically drowned.
Driving the Titans to madness, and the mortals to mutual war.
I already mentioned how the quantum cores breed evil and the impulse to sin. If I'm right and the golden core flame suddenly turned into one of these quantum cores, then that explains the sudden shift in behavior.
Strife broke out across the land, and the stain of blood consumed the light of dawn. As the gods waged war, the sun itself grew quiet in awe.
Going back a few frames again, these giant hands look mechanical and are very likely the hands of a puppet of Enna's, most likely another emanator like Dominicus, and likely the true identity of the original massive titan. Just like how the quantum cores are the hearts of the Fragmentum monster, the original core flame is probably the heart of this puppet. Back to the sun growing quiet, this is very likely their interpretation of when Enna themselves disappeared, because they'd been assimilated into Sheepe.
A millennium of divine conflict.
Taygeron's rampage only lasted a few Amber Eras, so a millennium of conflict fits the timeline too.
Left only a shattered world, and an age of darkness.
When Enna disappeared, the simulated universe describes it as the sun being stolen and the believers who had lost their god woke up from slumber. Their sons had once disappeared, and a statue of an entangled pair of twins appeared in the sky like an omen of a coming long night.
The core flames flickered and dimmed, and the age of the gods met its end.
So here we see an eclipse of the sun, which is imagery heavily associated with nihility.
Golden blood fell to the ground as a distant prophecy resounded.
Now, the golden blood is currently heavily associated with Nanook, but I'll explain in a sec why I think this could be a red herring, especially because Nanook is the youngest Eon, and I'm fairly confident that this is all happening well before the destruction was born. Besides, this golden blood power grants much more than merely destruction, as you'll see.
Flow, golden blood, flow.
Note that the blood is flowing into the giant palm, a parallel of how it flowed out of the giant palm of the Titan at the very beginning. This text is also in quotations, implying that the remainder of the video is the aforementioned prophecy.
Converge into a boiling river that flows to the heroic heirs of this world.
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting. Basically, as I mentioned, yes, this invokes the imagery of Nanook. But did you know that the Gold Rivers actually existed long before Nanook did? This is not the first time that we've seen the golden blood flowing out of someone's palms. It happened in the Swarm disaster. Firstly, there's this pic of a Nameless whose hands are dripping golden blood, but there's also the Golden River associated with the cast iron throne. In this river, all of the gold, bricks, blood, energy, science, enlightenment, and ignorance flowed in trickling streams from the equilibrium. You can even see this golden river used by Opal to repair Aventurine Stone, since Diamond sits on the cast iron throne. Now, this golden river detail is extremely important because in the Swarm disaster, the civilizations that lost their sun actually had their sun returned to them for equilibrium. So basically what I'm saying is that the equilibrium is the reason the golden blood started flowing again, empowering the Chrysos Heirs to rise up. And now it's time to talk about the heirs themselves. The description gives us another summary of what happened. The black tide of the end fell upon the land, gods descended into madness, and mortals turned their weapons on each other. Yet still, there were heroes who chased the flames, leading the way in the grand undertaking of creation. In this world, they fused burning golden ichor into their bodies. Will destiny remember their names in days to come? So, from this we know that the golden blood is actually in their bodies, which is an interesting detail because it suggests the flames, such as the one Aglaia is holding, are actually separate.
Aglaia the Gold Weaver.
So she's named after a real deity, one of the three Graces, who actually tended to Aphrodite and helped her when she jealously tried to weave better than Athena. For Aglaia, she weaves the threads of fate, which is the job of the three fates, otherwise known as the Moirai. She's surrounded by puppets who look like they have giant needles as weapons, probably. She's a dressmaker and these puppets are actually mannequins, but I can't help but notice there's a remarkable similarity in her aesthetic with Enna too. The big eye in the background, the strings, the puppets, the white cloth with golden embroidery. I'm sure you see it. I also wanted to mention that it looks like she might have designed Himiko's dress, but I'm not sure if that's possible with the timeline and the whole lack of a silver rail thing, so I'm curious if the fact that these are basically identical dresses is ever brought up or if we're just ignoring it.
You must gently caress the holy city's silken web and hearken to the sounds and voices of destiny.
So this line suggests Aglaia's power is rooted in the finality, with the whole sounds and voices of destiny thing reminding me a lot of the omens of finality. I think most of these flame chasers will be associated with a different path, so from now on, I'll mention which ones I think they are on.
There shall be the three-faced messenger traversing through myriad doors.
English calls this girl Tibby, but in Chinese her name means orange-red treasure instead. Presumably this denotes her appearance.
Bearing tidings to you from hundreds of worlds.
The you in question here is Aglaia, since the prophecy is still talking directly to her. I'm also confused about the mechanics of bearing tidings to Aglaia from hundreds of worlds, because Amphoreus isn't connected to the silver rail, so should be relatively isolated from other worlds. Considering that there seems to be clones, this implies the other worlds might be alternative realities of Amphoreus, perhaps? I don't know. Aesthetically, she seems inspired by little cherub babies from art called puto, which are particularly common in Renaissance art in both Christian and Greco-Roman themes. Her description is that she resides in harmony with the divine ordained, so for the sake of assigning a path, I'm going to say she's Harmony.
Anaxagoras the Foolish.
This name is a reference to a real-life ancient Greek philosopher considered the first to introduce the concept of nous around 450 BC. He's an interesting guy, having been the first to correctly explain how an eclipse works and that the moon reflects light from the sun rather than glows itself. He also speculated that the sun was just a star, which he was also correct about, but at the time this got him into a lot of trouble. There's a lot, so I'll link some resources in the description if you want to know more. Naturally, I have to assign this guy the path of erudition based on the name alone. He's also referred to as the Foolish, which I would normally think associates him with Aha, but here I think it's just because he inquires about the prophecy and disrespects the gods, heavily suggesting that he doubts everything that's going on regarding the Titans and the flame chase. If you've watched some of my other videos or have a good idea about tarot, you'd know that the Fool's Journey is a recurring theme for Holyverse, since you need to be a bit foolish in order to embark on the important quest for enlightenment. Based on this, I'm pretty comfortable saying he's probably going to be one of the major players in this story.
Has enough knowledge to refute faith and to stir up a torrent capable of slaying gods.
I find it extremely ironic that it's the prophecy itself that says he'll do this, yet he's supposed to doubt the prophecy. So, plot twist, he actually believes the prophecy? I don't know, but then wouldn't that just be following the prophecy anyway? Also, Kaya look-alike?
Go seek the priest who severs dawn from dusk.
Now, this I don't really get. She is very associated with the sky, since her description says she heals the sky and rebuilds the mystical realm. This could be a heaven, but I'm not sure. Also, Pink Barbara look-alike?
and let the sky become the slumbering cot from which she wakes.
Again, pretty confusing language. If you know if this is referencing something, let us know in the comments. I'm not exactly confident with any path to assign her, but I think preservation if she's attempting to repair the planet's firmament, which should be connected to Qliphoth.
Make him roar, Midamos the Undying.
Midamos is another real-life deity. This time it's the god personifying fear and panic in battle. His short name, Medei, in Chinese is actually 10,000 enemies. His description says the heir apparent pursues strife and bathes in blood for the rightful crown. The enemies he is fighting sort of resemble the giant titan from the start with the headpiece, so he's probably fighting them. The giant battle lion with the sun motif is seriously putting Jingyuan out of a job.
Pierce the enemy's king with Kremnos' blood.
Apparently, Kremnos is Greek for ravine or deep hole. You can see the red emerging from the ground behind him, so presumably this lion is some kind of underground entity. For the focus on fighting and pursuing the enemy king, I will assign this guy the hunt path.
Set her in motion, Cypher the fleet-footed.
Cypher's description says that the fly-in shadow fleets and vaults over time's lies. I don't really know what to say about her yet, other than noting that she has a lot of eyes.
Command the frozen time to once again flow.
There's a lot to unpack in this sentence. Firstly, it implies that time is not already flowing. I don't know what path she would be, but it's tempting to just say she's probably also finality, like Aglaia, because of the time associations, but there's no connections to omens as far as I can tell. The other instance of time manipulation is Clocky, but Mikhail did have prophetic dreams, so again, finality.
And that servant of the Hand Shadow, the daughter of River Styx.
What the heck is a dragon doing in Amphoreus? Is this one of the children of permanence? If so, why is it all voidy? Is it actually one of the Leviathan? Does it have something to do with the tides during the Swarm disaster with the battle between the Swarm and Veracity? Why is it dead? Where is this? It kind of looks underground because there's no light in the River of Souls as usually in the underground afterlife.
If you grant her the right to embrace, then even frozen death will sleep peacefully at her fingertips.
See, this implies that it's possible to deny her the right to embrace and not sleep peacefully in death, which is concerning, but ultimately not that surprising if Amphoreus is wrapped up in the nihility. The River Styx is a similar river to Acheron. Given the ominous nature of Amphoreus marketing, that implies everyone on Amphoreus is already dead and we're probably going to a time loop or something. Castra sounds like she's going to be important for accepting the end has already come. Alternatively, there's something on Amphoreus that's preventing people from dying, so they have to seek out Castras to be allowed to die. Also, her Chinese name actually means distant or long-lasting butterfly, which makes a lot more sense than Castra's given her design. Just like Seela, these butterflies seem associated with the nihility and the Sea of Quanta, and they usually represent the souls of the dead. This should put her on the path of nihility.
You will hear the sound of the ocean's abyss reverberating through the storm.
We don't have any information about this unnamed woman, but this later purple portrait should be hers. Given the presence of a dragon on Amphoreus and her ability to control the water, could it be that this woman is on the path of permanence like the Vidyadhara? Hard to say.
You will see outlanders from faraway realms visiting under the veil of gloom.
So what's crazy about this frame is that it looks like the figure might be Sunday. The little points emerging from the neck look like they could be the wings of a Holovian, and it does seem to wear a suit based on the silhouette. There is also the distinct outline of a train in the background. It could be a coincidence, but most likely not, especially if Amphoreus is as associated with Enna as I think it is. This could be his chance to learn the true history of his eon and not the lies Gotha fed him.
Until the journey's end, when the titans of old have all fallen.
Remember that picture I showed you a few minutes ago? The nameless, sandy, golden blood hands from the Swarm disaster? Are you seeing the same vision I'm seeing right now?
And the nameless new king ascends the throne, alongside countless heroes.
And now we're up to Phanon, whose Chinese name actually means White Calamity. His description says the hero remains nameless and engraves marks of eternity. He should be the nameless new king discussed, but I have this sneaking suspicion it might be a red herring, especially if Sunday does join us at Amphoreus. Both of these characters share the exact same aesthetics, including the eyes of Enna. There's also the suspicious detail that in the other trailer, March 7th is holding the White King in her hand, which could be nothing, but given how seriously Hoyo takes their chess references, I'm suspicious. We already know from Black Swan that the three Eons are fighting over Amphoreus, and the chess should represent their battle. What I find peculiar is that the soldiers here are shaded in black, which suggests they're corrupted by the tides. This whole video very much has the white versus black chess vibe that culminates in this reveal of the White Calamity, Phanon. Now, knowing Kevin, this entire situation is his doing, and I'll talk about what my guess is about this towards the end.
To embark on the grand mission of deliverance.
This giant enemy looks like the real version of the Titan at the start that held the sun on its back, but this time the sun is being eclipsed. This is probably the final Titan that needs to be defeated, but the story is likely not going to be that simple. This is also the last line of the prophecy, so now Aglaia continues in her own words.
I gaze towards the distant future, where the sun shall etch the footprints of humanity.
So this visual once again reaffirms that the eclipsed sun is the same sun. Interestingly, she says the sun shall etch the footprints of humanity, implying that it will return. Again, I can't help but feel like this is a prophecy about Sunday and the Astral Express, but I guess we will find out.
The children of humankind, known as the Chrysos Heirs.
Chrysos means gold, so it's referring to the flame chasers who have the golden blood.
Shall pluck the gods' core flames, and once more uphold the world.
So she says this, but I'm left wondering if the Titans still have their core flames. Why does her drip tea says that she holds the flame of romance? Do only some of the flame chasers have a flame recovered from the Titans, or do they all have their own flames, separate from the Titans' flames?
The flame chase is a journey of constant loss, among which even life itself holds little value.
Again, ominously suggesting that they're all dead anyway, if life doesn't hold value to them.
Therefore we cast even ourselves into the flame.
This shows three unknown figures, though we do know the last one's name is Serija, thanks to the description.
Only to inscribe the opening stroke in the poem of creation.
To me, this sounds a lot like the cycle of finality and origin, and knowing the story of the Flame Chasers and Honkai Impact 3rd makes this all the more likely. It's probably the case that they're going to keep going around in loops, and we'll have to help them break the cycle somehow. Also, this art resembles the art you would find on the ceiling of some holy buildings depicting the rings of heaven and all the angels. You can find some in Rome's Sistine Chapel, which is also where the art that inspired Sunday's boss fight comes from. Another popular scene is the Assumption of the Virgin, which this art strongly resembles.
Most heroes' journeys in the universe are just dice tosses they threw on a whim.
Again, the topic of the hero's journey, as previously mentioned with the fool's journey, it's also pretty curious that Herta is involved in Amphoreus, considering barely anyone is supposed to know about it. We only know about it because of Black Swan.
Will your answer be any different, Amphoreus?
Herta seems to be implying that Amphoreus is going to try and define their own journey despite the influence of the Eons that are currently fighting over it.
Of course, this will be a romantic story like none that has come before. You think so too, right?
たった一つの楽園はあなたのおかげでみんなの心に存在するようになるの。とてもロマンチックでしょ？だから私たちの物語を忘れないで。約束しましょう。ね？
So, this girl's name is Cyrene. Naturally, the Alicia XP should be part of the Flame Chasers, and I did initially assume she's the unnamed pink one because Alicia, but the similarity of the name Ceridra does have me wondering a bit if they're pulling an Una reverse on us, especially with the star shape in the hair that matches the star on the back of her dress. The hairstyle does look more like Grisio, but you literally never know for sure what Hoyo is planning. Anyway, Cyrene is definitely a path of beauty. Like, what if this is actually Marge's original life and Cyrene is all pink and Ceridra is all blue, but Marge is pink and blue? So, I don't know. I'm probably so wrong here, but like, what if, you know? This is the time for crazy theories, so don't flame me.
あなたは過去を探求するために来た。しかし真実の礎石はすでに過去の土に埋もれている。ここはマッセ最後の楽土であり、失意者たちの墓地でもある。ここに存在しているのは少し興味を惹かれるようなお話だけ。遠い昔のこと、ヒーローになれなかった13人のお話。
Okay, next I want to talk about Fuli. They're obviously very involved with the Amphoreus, since the Garden of Recollection is the whole reason we're even going there. Not so coincidentally, the Swarm Disaster story also involves the birth of Fuli at the same time as the waters are rising and the Ouroboros emerge to fight Tazeronth. This is described as a bunch of dying people crying out in the middle of the ocean, but nobody cares about them. Then invisible arms collect and pluck them from the void. This is very likely what happened to Amphoreus too. Between the Remembrance saving the drowned from the ocean void and Equilibrium returning the sun to them, this is what I think caused the weird situation on Amphoreus. There's also the particular detail that the awakened followers of the Order were soothed specifically by someone on the path of the Trailblaze. The other weird thing is that the Cosmodesy event confirms that Amphoreus' connection to the Intelligentsia Guild goes beyond mere aesthetics, but not only that, she's also role-playing as specifically Dr. Ratio, which is very bizarre, especially if you've already seen my Dr. Ratio Eon Theory video and you know all about how I said Dr. Ratio likely comes from Prometheus, and Prometheus is equated with the core flames of Amphoreus, which, don't really know what to do with this information yet. But anyway, putting everything together, I'm going to lay out what I think happened. This is going to be wild, and to be clear, I'm not really expecting to be right about everything, but here it is, Lolity's Amphoreus prediction. Before the Swarm Disaster, Amphoreus was a prosperous land in the universe ruled by Enna. An emanator of order had brought the core flame to Amphoreus and established civilization, creating the 12 titans similar to Diamond's 10 stone hearts. At this point, the IPC is in their early phase, and the early Intelligentsia Guild is likely founded here, or at the very least brought here from another nearby planet. Then the Swarm Disaster begins, and Enna's civilizations begin to drown thanks to the rising tides, causing the core flames to turn quantum and invoke the nihility. The empowered titans turn sinful, while Enna's loss of control also lets destruction run rampant for the first time ever. For the duration of the war between Tazeronth and Ouroboros, Amphoreus is warring among themselves, and when the war concludes and Enna is assimilated into Shipe, the planet finally succumbs to death and nihility. But all is not lost. Fuli is born, and they are plucking the dying civilizations from the sea and desperately trying to preserve them, causing Amphoreus to be encased in icy memories, frozen in time. A nameless on Amphoreus, their new savior, reassures them that the Equilibrium will return the missing son. Most likely, this is Kevin, the nameless new king. The Equilibrium soon after responds to the loss of all the suns and directs the flow of the Golden River back towards civilizations, Amphoreus included, giving rise to the Chrysos Heirs. But with the weird state of everything frozen in Fuli's memoria, the Chrysos Heirs are stuck in an eternal time loop, battling the Titans only to hit the end and write themselves into a new origin, beginning it all again. Keep in mind that the point of Fuli's power is to turn dead planets into seeds that can be reborn, so I suspect that's going to be the outcome of our quest to Amphoreus. I've also contemplated if Phanon could be the original person who brought the core flame to Amphoreus and summoned a puppet of Enna, especially considering his very blatant Enna imagery, and Holio likes to make Kevin really, really old. Maybe the original Titan was his summon all along, and he lost control of it when the core flame was corrupted, but he somehow survived the events, and now he's on a quest to bring it down once and for all. It would also be a really interesting juxtaposition against Sunday's story, especially if Sunday does come with us to Amphoreus. If this planet does indeed turn out to be Marsh's home planet, it's possible a fragment of Elysia was somehow broken out of the frozen Memoria time loop and left adrift in space until she was discovered by the Express, but since it's only a fragment, her memories were incomplete. Not only that, but it might leave the Elysia that remains similarly incomplete, which might be why she appears so mundane compared to the rest. Elysia also appears to be missing from the group photo at the end, assuming she is actually number 10, so there's that. There's also the Mem situation, so maybe this creature is related to her. I don't know, I'm fully expecting to be totally wrong about all of this. For all I know, this could just be another one of those trailers, and none of this means anything at all. If there's new stuff closer to the patch, then I could make an updated predictions video, so keep eyes out for that. Otherwise, I look forward to reading your own theories about what will happen in Amphoreus below in the comments. In the meantime, I'd strongly recommend doing a refresher on the Swarm Disaster lore before Amphoreus comes out, because it looks like it's going to be very important soon, and I didn't even mention the shenanigans that Aha got up to in this video, but we know Sparkle is one of the few that knows about Amphoreus. Alright, catch us next time. Bye!